name is Lisa Prokopyshin. I'm a DBT therapist living in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by your emotions? Sort of like your emotions are driving the car and you're the passenger and you just don't have a lot of say over where you're going. I think people, if you ask anybody, has felt like that from time to time. When you have BPD, you probably feel that way a little bit more than some people do. So that's why it would be really great if you could somehow change your relationship with your emotions, get yourself back behind the wheel, feel like you're actually in control. So we teach the skill mindfulness of current emotions, which is when we teach you how to change your relationship with emotions, be able to observe them, watch them go by without jumping on the train and feeling like you're part of that emotion, right? Which is how you feel when the emotion is driving the car. Or going to the other extreme, which is when you're blocking and suppressing emotions, pretending they're not there, and you know what, later on they come back and bite you, right? My guess is you've been through one or the other, or probably both. So what we want to teach you with mindfulness of a current emotion is how do you have that balance of observing emotions, not jumping on board, not ignoring them. Okay? It actually reminds me a little bit of Canada's Worst Driver. It's a TV show that's it's in its 11th season. If you're in Canada, you've probably heard of it. If you're in the US, maybe you haven't. It's a show where they try to teach people how to drive. So mindfulness of current emotions really makes me think of some of the obstacles that they have on this course. It goes a little bit like this. This is the balance we're talking about here. So here's my Canada's Worst Driver obstacle course here, made out of Christmas candy. Okay. So if you're mindful of your current emotions, you're aware of things as you're driving by. You can make decisions in the moment. This is sort of like you being in control. You're driving the car, the emotions are not driving the car. You're aware of what's going on around you. And you can say, okay, right now I'm feeling sad. I observe that I'm feeling sad, that these are the body sensations that it does for me, right? And you can kind of watch that emotion come and go as a wave. Let's talk about what happens when you go through that. Okay. So sometimes what happens when people have the experience of the emotions driving the car, it's a little bit like this obstacle course in Canada's Worst Driver, where it's like you're looking at the object, and instead of looking at where you want to drive, which to me is mindfulness of current emotions, like, yes, I know I'm sad, but I've got my eye on the goal, which is to get to the end of the course. You just can't take your eye off the emotion, and before you know it, you're crashing into the emotion, which here is Smarties, which is kind of like our M&Ms, right? You're crashing into the emotion, and before you know it, you're having all these life consequences. You see, you're not getting through eye of the needle there, right? You're having all these things happen, all these consequences that you have to deal with later because you're an emotion mind, right? Or you could have the opposite happen, and I've seen this on Canada's Worst Driver too, where you say, nope, there's no obstacles here, they don't exist. None. There's no emotion. I don't have any emotions. So what do you think is going to happen there? If you think you don't have any emotions, what's the likelihood at some point that you're going to hit something, right? It could totally happen. So mindfulness of current emotions is when you have that middle ground and you can say, yeah, you know, I see there's stuff on the side of the road. I'm watching those emotions go by. I'm watching myself drive the car, and I can make effective decisions, right? Does that make sense? So hopefully at the end of the day, that'll get you to the end of the course, and you can feel like you have a lot more control over the decisions you make, because you know what, when you're an emotion mind, nobody makes your best decisions, right? So this is one of those skills that if you keep practicing, and I'd encourage you to practice every day, over time, you're going to spend a lot more time in wise mind. You're going to be able to observe your emotions. You're going to make better decisions. And that's going to help you out a lot long term. And it's really going to change your relationship with your emotions. And help you get to your life worth living goals. Because if you're taking out the smarties on the obstacle course, it's really hard to get to your life worth living goals because you're dealing with all the collateral damage, right? So give it a try. Give it a try for a week if you've never tried this skill before and see how it works for you. I'd be curious how it does. So I'm Lisa Prokopyshin. Thanks for listening.